This is a podcast or something like that. What is up, my Verbal Journal pod people? What is up? Oh my lord. Wow. It's time. Episode 35 in the Verbal Journal franchise. Thanks for stopping by. We're about to dive into some interesting stuff. I'm going to talk. Is sort of how things go here if you're new. If you're not new, welcome back. I hope, I hope you're enjoying your time here on the pod. So I'm having a great day. It's Sunday. It's later. If you're one of our immediate or one of our first responders, as I call them, or people who listen to the pod very immediately when it drops, if you're a first responder, you might be like, whoa, it's later, bro. What's up? You might be saying that. Well, I have a good reason, which is I was sort of waiting to see if this interview would happen today that I've been putting together. And it's okay. It's happening probably next weekend or, sometime soon. Probably next weekend or maybe the weekend after. But I'm basically just coordinating with this guy who, I've known him for some years. I met him through some work I did, sort of related to my social work, but a little bit separate. I was doing like reading and writing tutoring, and I ended up getting a client or, a student who was an adult. Instead of, I worked mostly with, I only had a few other people that I did. It's just a way to get easy money on the side when I was in my master's program. I would just work with this, someone else who was in my master's program, like had sort of coordinated setting tutors up with people who needed like reading and writing tutoring. So I had like a few, people I would go over to their house. It was like I'd work with a kid. But in this case, it was an adult, and he was an adult who had spent years in prison, so he had never really fleshed out his reading and writing skills. Actually, I later learned he didn't know any reading and writing when he was sentenced to life in prison for a crime he didn't commit when he was 20 years old. And so he was exonerated after several decades in prison, and I worked with him like a decade after he got out of prison, just about. Well, no, less than that. I guess, like 7-ish. No, 7-ish years after he was exonerated and released from prison for the crime that he did not commit. And it was really interesting, obviously. I mean, I'm sure you're interested just hearing about it. You're like, what the fuck? We don't usually get interesting stuff in the first 3 minutes of the pod. You know what I mean? But so it was always very interesting, and he's a very cool guy. I always liked hanging out with him, and we would just like do some reading and writing lessons, basically. And then he'd always be like, I want to get my story out there, his story. And he would talk to me about it. And at the time we probably did, I don't know how many, we probably did like 5 to 10 meetups, maybe only 5 or so. But where we'd do this, and I got paid. I got paid by an organization, like a different third party would pay me on his behalf for my time. I don't know, like $20 an hour or something like that. And we would just meet up at Starbucks. So I would just be sitting with this guy, and he's black. So we'd be sitting, just me and this like 60-year-old black guy, and we'd just be like hanging out, talking at Starbucks. And it was such a great relationship. I'm just like, I don't often get to have cool relationships with people who are just in a very different demographic, like a different generation, a different race. And just like he has this lived experience. I am so far from understanding firsthand, and so it's just like endlessly fascinating to get to know him. And I'm when I do this interview and when you watch it, and maybe future people will be listening to this after watching it, But you'll see like he's an extremely personable guy who you just like, I don't know. I just, it's very easy to just, immediately be outraged by his story and kind of captivated by his ability to persevere in life. I told him recently, because we've been having these conversations on the phone leading up to the interview where I've been just like talking to him. It's sort of just like friendly where we're just talking about his life. But it's also like me, thinking about, okay, what do I want to ask him when we do the interview? And that's very, that's obvious. Like I'm clear with him, like, oh, we'll have these conversations sort of like, and then we'll have the interview where maybe I'll repeat some questions or, I'm not going to try to guide the interview too much. Like I have a lot planned, but I'm trying to not over plan. I'm trying to remind myself like, a lot of the magic is totally out of my hands and it's just going to come from talking with this guy and just, letting people hear his story through his own voice. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I don't mind it being delayed because I still can just do so much more research. Like, I could have done the interview like 2 months ago when he reached out. We hadn't talked in like a year or so. I could have done the interview then, but there's no reason to, you know what I mean? Like you might as well just wait and do it right and like actually have my info, because I want to talk with him about everything, like every detail. And there's so much to talk about. And there's so much I won't even know to ask about, but even out of the stuff I know, and there's all these like macro level issues. I don't know, I just kind of want to hear his thoughts about like the broader patterns that his experience is a part of. And it's wild. I don't know if I'll bring this up in the interview or in the video, because I'll probably mention a bunch of stuff in the video, but not the interview. I'll just like cut to different things. I'm going to, make the video not just the interview, I think. But one wild thing is like, I've been looking at the National Registry of Exonerations, and like they collect all this data. And like, I think this guy was convicted like in around the time where like was the peak of like convictions of cases that are now have led to exonerations. You know what I mean? It's like the 80s basically. And like, I guess for a variety of factors, that was, as of current data, like sort of the peak of convicting people who would have to be exonerated through provable, evidence showing that they did not commit the crime. And like, you have to remember, like, apparently like 95% of convictions in the US are through guilty pleas. So those people can't really be exonerated. I mean, I guess maybe they can, maybe there's some ways that they can, but I'm sure it's way harder. I mean, no, they definitely can be exonerated if it comes out that their guilty plea was like obtained under torture or something like that, but that's a completely different thing than like, that might be more rare, I think, than all the different types of misconduct and eyewitness issues that can create false convictions in cases where there are not guilty pleas, cases that do go to trial. So anyways, I'm really looking forward to discussing everything about this. It's going to be so cool. And so I've spent the day kind of preparing for this interview. I wasn't really sure if it was going to happen. I was sort of thinking it wouldn't. We had kind of like loosely coordinated, or we had planned it, but I knew that he kind of, he doesn't necessarily like, it wasn't like necessary for us to do it today. We were both just like, oh, let's try to do it Sunday. But I knew it could have easily gotten delayed. So it's not a big deal. And like I said, I'm actually happy about it because now I have another week to prepare, which is good. So I've been just spending the day reading about larger issues, like reading like scholarly articles about witness misidentification of like suspects especially like what's called the other race bias. I believe ORB, where like people are worse at identifying faces of other races, so and white people especially are bad at differentiating between faces of other races of non-white people, including black people. And so like the sort of old trope of like white people being unable to tell the difference between like different types of, or like different people of any other race, like that trope is scientifically true, that white people are bad at that for a variety of reasons, including like just like the more experience you have with people of another race, and this again is scientifically tested, the better you are at discerning the differences in the different faces of people of that race. So white people, historically have been obviously segregating themselves. So that's created a context where they become unable to functionally tell the difference between people of other races. So obviously in a legal setting, that creates huge issues of witnesses or victims misidentifying people. So that's a huge source of exoneration. So I was reading about that, and then I just started reading about legal issues that have bearing on this, like how just some issues with jury selection, like systemic racism being pervading like the jury selecting part of the process. And then I was reading about the history of like southern states basically after Reconstruction in like the late 1800s, like clawing back like as much like total dominance of black people through various means of like preventing black people from voting, and then also, relevant to what I'm looking into, like preventing black people from being on juries. And so black people are disproportionately pushed off of juries in the US, like, not included, prosecutors and defense attorneys can, choose to not include jurors, like a significant number of them, some for cause, some just for no reason. And it's like they would have to be overtly racist for it to be illegal, basically, was the gist I got from like a 60-page article I read. It was like if the prosecutors do, statistically it's proven, like disproportionately prevent black people from being on juries, and at even higher rates when the defendant is black. So that's like wild, like at very significantly like greater rates when the defendant is black. So that's obviously preventing the constitutional right of people being judged by a jury of their peers. And so I was just reading about the history of like kind of like activism related to the laws of jury selection. But yeah, basically, there's all these ways that white people were like, okay, as long as we use neutral language, we can basically make all these changes to the law that will, affect black people. Like we'll create the regulations around how attorneys can limit people from being on juries, but we'll use race neutral language, but we'll make sure it will affect, things in the exact way we want. So I was reading about all that and just chilling out, and it's been a really fun time. I've been just, kind of preparing and reading, and then I'm reading about other like specific issues with law enforcement agencies. And there's a lot of interesting stuff. But yeah, lately life's been good generally. I've been feeling good. There's a chance I'll play some poker tonight, which I've been enjoying. I'm not sure yet for sure if it'll happen, but it seems like it might. And I might host it, which is very exciting. So what else? So yeah, I had some fun things I wanted to talk about today. And I hope you're ready for that. First, let's check out the Verbal Journal mailbag. So you can write in at verbaljournalpodcast@gmail.com. That's verbaljournalpodcast@gmail.com. And we do not have anyone writing in today. So we'll move right past that segment. into our next segment, which is entitled Things to Talk About. So, oh, hold on. There's the opening theme music. Things to talk about. Hi. So today on Things to Talk About, I wanted to follow up on, I was talking about On Cinema at the Cinema last week, the Tim Heidecker and Greg Turkington web series that I've been really enjoying, and I've continued enjoying it. I finished it. I watched all 13 seasons. The episodes are pretty short. And I watched all the Oscar specials, some of them twice. And it's great. Yeah, at first I watched some of the Oscar specials in reverse order, and let me tell you, On Cinema at the Cinema definitely makes a lot more sense when you watch it in order. It is not really a Better Call Saul Breaking Bad situation where you can watch the later thing on its own. You know, you can, but yeah, you really do have to watch On Cinema at the Cinema in order. But I was talking about how they sort of play addiction for laughs in a way that's like morally questionable, but I was explaining sort of or elaborating for myself like why I feel like it is that it doesn't bother me, even though it seems that they're playing addiction for laughs. And it just, basically said it doesn't seem mean-spirited. It seems like very easy to take as a joke. But I thought I'd follow that up by saying, like, I watched later, and I guess spoiler alert if you're like, yeah, if you're in the middle of this series. But, a few seasons later, there's, Tim marries this woman, Terry, I believe her name is. And it's, speaking of court, I didn't realize this when I watched sort of sporadically, but when I watched all the way through, they explain it. She was actually a juror on the trial of Tim Heidecker that they did as like the fictionalized trial that I was explaining last week. Was the thing that like drew me into the series actually. And I didn't realize just how integrated the trial was with the whole series. I didn't like it's completely just a part of the On Cinema series. I didn't realize that. It also stands alone in an amazing way. It stands alone really well. But yeah, it does help to know the On Cinema stuff. Anyways, I did not realize, but spoiler. This one's an actual spoiler alert because if you want to watch the trial, this would kind of mess it up. So fast forward like 30 seconds if you're gonna watch the Tim Heidecker trial. Okay. So the trial ends in a mistrial because one of the jurors just wouldn't go along with the rest in saying he was guilty of this crime he was obviously guilty of. And you find out in the On Cinema... One sec. All right. Just had a phone call and it was nice, so whatever. So you find out that it was Terry who was the juror who allowed him to get away with murdering many children and other young adults. And young adults, I mean. So yeah, you learn that it was her who allowed him to get away with it. She and him then have a relationship, and she works for him. She has these like skills as a, I guess like financial manager of some kind or like some tax. I don't know. She like takes over the business end of his business in the On Cinema universe. And, what happens is like their relationship breaks down. She ends up going to, rehab, because she is, addicted to alcohol. And, what's interesting is like I was saying that Tim's addiction was played for laughs. Terry's addiction is really not. And it's especially not when she leaves. You find out that she's at the rehab and he's not allowed to speak with her. And so you get the idea that, okay, she probably doesn't want to speak with him. It doesn't sound like it's just a rehab doing this. It sounds like she doesn't want to speak with him and she probably wouldn't. He's like a terrible guy. That's his character. That's the whole point. So then she comes back and says goodbye to him and the On Cinema universe and Greg and everybody. And in saying goodbye, she apologizes for her role in any of the chaos, because she was, not great when she was in active addiction. She behaved in ways that were definitely hurtful and not great. And she certainly enabled Tim. And that's part of her. She makes this big monologue, and that's part of what she says is, the least I can do is not enable you anymore. It's speaking to Tim. And it's very interesting because it grinds. It's like the end of one of the seasons, I think, and it grinds the episode to a halt. It's multiple minutes. It's a 100% serious speech where she takes accountability for her role in things and makes it clear that she never wants to have any contact with Tim or the show or anything. And he's like trying to, play it off as it's starting up, but he realizes he can't, and she just is going to say what she's going to say. And it was really interesting for me to watch after talking about how they play his addiction for laughs. This was just not, it's like it builds the universe to have serious things, and it does make the eventual laughs funny, but that can't change the fact that this was not played for laughs. There are moments where Tim's addiction is also not played for laughs if he's just crying or something. But then there are moments where it definitely is. And I think you can probably laugh at anything if it's framed correctly. And what I was saying last week is I do feel like it's framed correctly. It's understood that it's a compassionate show and that they're not making fun of addiction. And maybe part of the way they earn that is by subsequently doing, proving themselves with a very serious way of concluding Terry's arc. Anyways, on an unrelated subject, another thing in things to talk about is so I was leaving work the other day from my new office, which is great. I've been there 2 weeks now. It's fantastic. I love the space. My clients love the space. Everything's going great. And as I was leaving the building, I guess someone walked by me, and I guess they might have been saying something or talking to themselves or something on the sidewalk. And then this guy, who's like crossing the street towards me, basically a little in front of me, like references that person who just walked by to me and says like, "Oh, did they say something to you?" Like trying to laugh about it with me. Like trying to laugh with me about a stranger like talking to themselves or something, And he's this random guy's like, oh, were they singing like to themselves or something? He says something like that, like, were they singing? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, and he goes, best to ignore. Like he's trying to fucking have this like in-group laugh with me about. And he called them a homeless person. He goes, was that homeless person singing? Like, I'm pretty sure that's what he said. I'm like, that immediately puts me on guard. I'm like, where do you get off calling someone homeless? Like, I don't understand how you could possibly ever call someone homeless. Like, I guess if you know that they are completely without a home and without a house, I guess. But like, how would you know that if someone walks by you on the street? And also, yeah, I like the term unhoused rather than homeless, because I think home is more of an abstract concept, and unhoused makes it clear that it would be possible to house people who don't have a house. So anyways, what this situation raised for me was the question. Well, so here's what happened actually. Like, so the guy says, best to ignore. And I'm walking, I'm like, I'm not too close to him. I'm like sort of off by myself, except there's a couple getting out of their car, like this old couple just getting out of their car right by me, close enough to hear me, but like the guy who goes best to ignore is not close enough to hear me. So when he goes best to ignore, I said like under my breath, like, yeah, you. Or I said like, yeah, like you. Like, that was my immediate reflexive response. Because, like, where do you get off being like, hey, stranger, let's laugh about that stranger who talked to strangers? Like, because they could have been talking to themselves or talking to me or singing or whatever. But regardless, it's like, where do you get off saying, like, hey, stranger, isn't it fucked up that that other stranger wanted to interact with a stranger? It's like, fuck you. Like, why are you better than that person? And so it definitely put me off. So what I reflected on was like, it's hard to have compassion for people not having compassion. Because in that moment, like the guy being like, best to ignore, like, I don't know this guy. Like, I'm sure he has his struggles. I'm sure he's like blinded, towards rationality for reasons that are to some extent beyond his control. And like, I get that that's rough. So I don't think it's necessary to have compassion or empathy for that guy, but it did make me think, like, that's something that's hard. And like that's sort of why it's hard. I think when someone themselves is not having compassion, it's really hard to have compassion for them. And it's maybe arguable whether you should. I don't know. But like, there are probably some situations where it's really necessary to have some compassion. And maybe that goes back to what we were talking about unconditional positive regard. That sort of unconditional compassion to a certain extent, in a functional extent, So I don't know. I mean, it's just, I guess I don't know what else I wanted to say about that. Maybe we'll come back to it in a future episode. Compassion for people who don't have compassion. Another funny thing on things to talk about. So this is funny. So I was doing a consultation call with a colleague. This was someone who's also a therapist. And we were just talking, and we talk occasionally to just like connect and talk about any challenges in our work and anything, that we're dealing with professionally. It's a great idea. It should be mandatory for licensed professionals, but I think it's not, you have to do continuing education, but you don't technically have to do peer consultation. But I do it, and I do it with actually multiple colleagues. This is just there's not much, I don't need to go into like the professional stuff, but it was just a funny moment because my colleague was talking to me about like what we do for clients and like wait, what am I trying to say? I can't figure out how to say this. He was talking to me about the effects of the ways that we view the work we do on the work we do. So like, if we view the work we do in one way, it affects our work in X way and so on. So he was like, sometimes I think about like, what is therapy? And I haven't told him about my YouTube channel. I'm going to tell him eventually. Sometimes I just don't share about it like immediately, or when I know, or I've known this person for a long time, so I can't say immediately. But sometimes I don't really share it, like unless I really am close with someone. And this is someone, we've only done consultation a few times. We're going to do it for a while, and we're definitely friendly, but I'm going to mention it. But I like, it's just such a big, people are like, whoa, you know what I mean? And it's like kind of, so when I meet people, if I meet someone at a party or out or something, it's not going to be one of the first things I mention that I have a YouTube channel. And professionally, I very rarely mention it. I've mentioned it before to colleagues, but I'm going to mention it eventually, but I just didn't feel like it in the moment because I thought, I don't know, it's just a big thing to drop. Oh, I have this freaking YouTube channel. So it was just really funny to me, and I was like, I'm going to mention that on the Verbal Journal pod. Just to have my colleague be like, what is therapy? And I was like, how can I not mention it right now? I have to say something. But I was like, I just didn't feel like it. I'll just talk about it eventually. But yeah, so I'm just thinking, what is therapy? Anyways, it's a hot topic. Yeah, it's a hot topic. Okay, next thing on things to talk about is, this is an interesting thing I just realized about the YouTube channel, is if, how they have those like, I don't even know, what do they call it? When you hover over a thumbnail and then it plays like a a sort of like selection of like the most action packed part in the video. Whatever that's called, where you hover and it does that. If you hover over the part 7 in the Better Call Saul series, the Artist's Journey, it's the best fucking thing ever. It's the part where I'm showing the montage from Better Call Saul to the that's an homage to the montage homage. I'm showing the montage homage that's an homage to All That Jazz. And what this is doing is it actually cuts together parts from both montages, and then you hover over it and it just cycles through parts from the Better Call Saul montage to the parts from the All That Jazz montage, and it looks so fucking good. It's like perfect. It actually directly, because in my video I say that it feels like they show the coffee cups as in a type of shot that is a reference to the shot in All That Jazz of the guy's Dexedrine, the amphetamines that the guy is taking. So it's almost like Jimmy is fueling his artistic lawyering with caffeine, just like this guy's fueling his artistic directing with Dexedrine. So I just thought that was really funny. I just discovered that. I was looking at my channel and I hovered over it, and it's like a perfect continuous loop of those two montages, homage and non-homage, homage and homaged. So very cool. And last thing on things to, or second to last thing on things to talk about is just a funny memory I had of one of the early sort of like things I learned about like art and artistic criticism and appreciation. I was remembering that like I used to have this book of Roger Ebert movie reviews in my bathroom just growing up when I was like a teenager. Just someone had bought a book of, maybe I bought, I don't, or maybe I wanted it. I didn't buy it. I didn't have money. I was a child, but maybe I was like, oh, can you buy me this book? Or someone bought it for me, but it was all these movie reviews Roger Ebert did. And they were good and they were really well written. And it was like, he was a really intelligent guy and I really enjoyed reading them. And I just remembered the other day about this one point he made, and it was so funny to me that I still remembered it. So I wanted to talk about it. I don't remember the movie. Maybe some of you will know the movie, or you could probably look it up in a book of his reviews. But he talks about a shot, and like he's talking. Oh, it was a book of his bad reviews. It was specifically movies that he didn't like, I think. So this is like me, liking people. This is like my love of YouTube video essays, but years earlier, because he's just dissing on people and stuff. But he was criticizing a movie for what he called like basically, or I don't remember the words he used, but he was talking about this shot and how pointless it was for a movie to, what some movie did apparently was have this long shot of a car driving off into the sunset or the distance, and then the next shot was like a reverse car in the distance driving close to be close to the camera. At least that's how I remember it. It could have been different. That's how I remember it. And Roger Ebert's point was like, why would you do that? like just have one or the other, but why would you have both shots? Because it basically just creates a situation where it's like you're basically canceling out the energy of the first shot with the energy of the second shot. And I thought that was really interesting, just like that still stuck with me. And I think it stuck with me because it was just this like, it's a very like material, what's the word I'm thinking? Like materialist sort of like breakdown of media analysis. It's like a very like, it's really just a very good point based in like solid concrete perceptual experience that sort of like illuminates how images and moving images like create meaning for us. And I thought that really kind of raised my consciousness as a kid. So it was just very interesting. And last thing, what was this? An ESPN video clip? Oh yeah, it was Brusdar Graterol, the Dodgers player, had his mom reunited with his mom at a game. Why did I save this to talk about? Why did I save this to talk about? He hadn't seen his mom for 7 years and they reunited at a game. And then I have the video clip here. Why do I have this? I mean, this is great. I guess I do like him a lot as a pitcher. Why did I save this to talk about? I don't have anything to say about it. Did I? Maybe there was something I forgot, but I don't have anything to say about it. Okay. Okay, chess segment of the week. I've been freaking dominating. So I've been playing these Lichess tournaments. I've talked about my bullet playing lately where I play these 1-minute games. But I've been playing these tournaments where it's 3-minute games or 5-minute games. And the tournaments are 1 hour long. You play as many games as you can against a pool of people, whoever wants to be in the arena. And then you rise to the top if you win a bunch of games, especially consecutive games. And then whoever has the most wins, calculated in a basically basic way, but also including a way that includes consecutive wins, counting a little bit more after a certain point. So basically, you just have to win and never lose. And I've done that pretty well lately. So I was in the under 1500 Super Blitz Arena on Lichess. And this was a few days ago. This was 6 days ago at 10 p.m. And I came in first with 42 points. And that's from 1 win and then a loss. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 consecutive wins. So I got 42 sort of tournament points. Second place was 27. Third place was 24. Fourth place was 20. So I dominated. That felt awesome to win 11 games in a row. Then 3 nights later, I played the same tournament, under 1500 Super Blitz Arena on Lichess, and I tied for first. Someone won their game at the last minute, so we tied for first. But I got 4, 5, 6 wins, and then a draw, and then 3 wins. So that's not losing a game out of 10. So that was nice. And some of these I win on time because I play quick. And some, but again, that's still valid. You know what I mean? You win on time, but like, that's still winning because you make them take time by playing good moves. So it's like, yeah. But, you know, then a lot of them, you checkmate them or threaten checkmate in a way that they can't stop. And yeah, that's how you win. And then the next night, and this was 2 nights ago, I think. I freaking dominated the same under 1500 Super Blitz Arena to such an extent that I raised my rating above 1500. So now I don't qualify for the Super Blitz Arena that's under 1500 anymore. Super Blitz means 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes. Each person starts at 3 minutes. So yeah, I raised my rating above 1500 by, in this tournament, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 wins in a row. And I got 40 points. Second place got 30. Third place got 28. Fourth place got 28. That just feels so good. Someone on Twitch one time asked like why I prefer arenas. And it's just like, it feels fucking good to like rise to the top of a pack. There were 144 people in this tournament. Now, the people at the very end were very bad, but I mean, hey, they played games. So out of 144 people, I came in vast first. It feels so good. But now I'm in under 1700. It's like another story. I won't have many tournament winning stories for quite a while. But it feels good. Okay, and last part of the chess segment is to say I watched this big match that happened to Speed Chess Championship. That chess.com hosts between Magnus and Nakamura. They're basically the 2 top speed chess players. I mean, Magnus is Magnus, top-rated player in the world. Nakamura was the 5-time reigning speed chess championship and wins a lot of other stuff online, especially, but also sometimes in person. And Magnus won by 1 point in a very long, multiple hours long tournament where they played 5-minute, 3-minute, and 1-minute games. It was really fun to watch, and I watched a bunch of it live and then a bunch of it after without knowing how it ended, and it was super, super exciting. I had a great time watching that. Live chess is really fun to watch. And I'll just brief update because this is like my biggest social justice cause that I care about. Magnus Carlsen, let's check if he continues to call himself world chess champion in his Twitter bio. So that's something I've been the leading journalist on the case. We've been doing some research into why he won't stop calling himself the world chess champion, even though he's indisputably not the world chess champion anymore. So let's do a brief update. It's been many months, and it seems that let's check. Yep, world chess champion in his bio. And then his header, Magnus Carlsen, world chess champion. And I know he has a social media team. All he has to do is pick up the phone, tell his social media team, please take world chess champion out of my Twitter bio and please upload a new header with like top rated, highest, he has that also in his bio, the highest ranked chess player in the world. So just keep that in your bio. You can still call yourself that. And then his YouTube page, Magnus Carlsen YouTube, also calls himself the world chess champion in the about section. Please don't play automatically. This is the official YouTube home of the world chess champion, Magnus Carlsen. Now, just to be clear, he is not the world chess champion. It's indisputable. I've heard him referred by many other people. No one refers to him as the world chess champion. When they talk about him in this whole tournament, they never call him world chess champion. They call him former champion, or they call him the highest rated player in the world, or they call him the greatest of all time. You can easily argue he's the greatest of all time. You cannot argue that he's the world chess champion. That is not true. Former world chess champion Garry Kasparov. Let's look at his Twitter bio. 13th world chess champion. Interesting. Yeah. So just a little update on that, Magnus. I know you listen to the Verbal Journal podcast. It's never too late to bite the bullet, and just admit that you're not the world chess champion. Ding Liren is. Okay, and for the final segment of the Verbal Journal podcast, wow, this has been a great episode, huh? This has been a great episode. I think I'm playing poker. Okay. Cool. Hold on. Set reminder for 7:30 p.m. poker soon. I do that kind of thing because I have to like clean my apartment and do some other stuff. So, just want to not forget. Okay. Screen time report. Screen time report. I like to do a weekly screen time report to talk about how much I'm using my phone. Average daily screen time on my phone of 1 hour, 17 minutes each day last week. Wow, that's a lot. 24 minutes more than the week prior's daily average. A lot of it was YouTube. Oh, yeah. I knew it was going to be a lot. I watched the new Jay Aubrey video about just pearly things on my phone, and I was like, this is going to come up in the screen time report. I just did that because I was like watching some like baseball game on my computer or something, and I was like, man, I just wanted to fuck with the screen time report segment. You know what I mean? I was just like, I'm just gonna fuck with the screen time report. And then the messages app. Okay, cool, whatever. You live and you learn. What can we do? All right, so cool. I guess that's it. Thanks so much for listening. This was a great time. I mean, I don't know why I'm thanking you for listening. Seems like a weird thing to do. You know what I mean? It's like if I talk on the phone with someone, like a friend or family member, and then they're like, thanks for talking on the phone with me. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? We were just having a conversation. What are you? I don't know if that makes sense. Well, I know that it makes sense to me. I just don't know if it makes sense to you. Okay. Bye.
This is a podcast.